Every NVR, every camera system has some form of digital zoom where you draw an area and you zoom in, and what do you see? It's just a bunch of pixels, and you're like, oh, I thought it was supposed to look all like, it's supposed to show that plate now that I digitally zoomed. And
Hey everyone, welcome to the first edition of the new series we're calling Security Myth Busting. We're looking at some of the biggest myths in the security industry and setting the record straight. In the first episode, we're going to be tackling the huge misconception in the industry, and that is the entire enhance that you see on the CSI and other police shows. Like, does that even really exist? So let me introduce you to our panel for this episode. I've got Gil and James tackling this one.
howdy.
Awesome. So let's start off by tackling the myth, and we're going to start by watching this fantastic video here.
Now let's get a good look at you.
Hold it. Run that back.
Wait a minute. Go right.
There, freeze that.
Full screen.
Okay, freeze that.
Love this already. Vector in on that guy by the back wheel.
Zoom in right here on this spot.
Vector in.
With the right equipment, the image could be enlarged and sharpened.
What's that?
It's an enhancement program.
Can you clear that up any?
I don't know. Let's enhance it.
Enhance section A6.
I enhanced the detail, and I think there's enough to enhance. Release it to my screen.
Enhance the reflection in her eye.
Let's run this through video enhancement.
Wow, the reflection in the eye is the worst part of it all.
It's
Like,
unbelievable.
Reflection.
Someone's reflection.
Reflection.
There's a reflection of the man's
The
face.
reflection.
Reflection.
There's a reflection.
Zoom in on the mirror.
You can see a reflection.
Can you enhance the image from here?
Can you enhance him right here?
Can you enhance it?
Can you enhance it?
Can we enhance this?
Can you enhance it?
Hold on a second, I'll enhance.
Zoom in on the door.
Times 10.
Zoom. Move in.
More.
Wait, stop.
These are some of my favorite shows.
Rotate us 75 degrees around the vertical.
yeah, I know. Battlestar Galactica is awesome.
Stop. And go back to the part.
Oh man, that one where it turns.
I know.
That's
It's the
ridiculous.
best.
Maybe we can use the Pradeep Sen method to see into the windows.
They software
Yeah, the big guy.
Value is off. This is the right combination of algorithms.
He's taken illumination algorithms to the next level, and I can use them to enhance this photograph.
Lock on and enlarge the Z-axis.
Enhance.
Algorithm.
Freeze and enhance.
Big term.
Wow.
It's
All
awesome.
right.
It's like funny, and then it becomes cringeworthy. It's
Oh,
like
exactly.
it's like yeah, it's funny, and then you're like, man, how many shows like, yeah, it's bad.
Show
Wow.
you had shows and movies. You had everything there.
So
Yeah.
James and Gil, I'll start by asking this: is this real or fake?
Go ahead, James.
It's pretty fake. Yeah, this is just one of those myths that we've had in the industry for this specific purpose. TV shows are all about the enhance. You can see like that was like what 15 different shows or movies and maybe more that have used that kind of cliche / trope or whatever they're called. And it doesn't really exist in the real world like that. I think we'll go deeper into it, but yeah, it does. It's pretty fake.
I want to break it down because I love the immediate. Can you enhance that? And then the video shot goes right to the fingers on the keyboards, and they just start flying through keys.
I know, and the unlimited levels of zoom that they had, they
Right.
just kept zooming in. I'm like, gosh.
The most realistic one, I think there was a guy actually touching a plus or minus zoom button.
Yeah.
That was probably the most realistic one of all of them.
Yeah, that's about the only one I saw that was like my favorite one was the one where it just kind of turned like it goes to like a 3D image and like moves the camera somehow.
Yeah.
Right.
That was ridiculous. That's definitely doesn't exist.
So, but it's great because so it's blurry from far away. So let's enhance it or zoom in, digitally zoom in and blow it up, and it gets clearer.
Yeah.
How wild is that? I think you just said something though, Gil, that's really important too before we move on. Like, can we just quickly define what they're meaning, this type of video, the media, what they're meaning when they say enhance?
So in my opinion, what they're trying to do is they're just trying to clear it up, get better resolution. They're trying to get closer, clearer. The better resolution is obviously clearer. And they're also, it seems to me like they're also like making the picture even a better picture than the possible resolution could be. Is that about
Using
explaining?
magic and machinery. Like,
Yeah,
that's the other thing. You always bring out some like big server. It's like, oh, we're gonna put this through the server.
that's what he said. Put it through the
Yeah.
A6, enhance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. Like Gil, you nail on the head, right? What they're meaning and what they're physically trying to do, like in the real world, is digitally zoom and make sure they get the clearest resolution possible, right? But
Right.
they're saying it in ways that, like you just said, that they would get better resolution than they originally had when they recorded the video. Like, what? How's that even possible?
I think even to define what digital zoom is, because this is like going into this misconception and myth, is that people do think that when you go and every NVR, every camera system has some form of digital zoom where you draw an area and you zoom in, and what do you see? It's just a bunch of pixels, and you're like, oh, I thought it was supposed to look all like, it's supposed to show that plate now that I digitally zoomed. And so digitally zoom is just basically the same thing. If you grabbed a JPEG picture on your computer and you just hit the zoom button so many times, and you start to see individual little pixels. And so you're not getting any more detail out of the image. It is making the details bigger. So like it's useful in scenarios where like, okay, you're looking at it from your phone and your phone's 6 inches maybe or so, and you can't see the detail, or you're on a laptop screen, you have a 4K camera. Digital zoom can help make those details larger on your screen, but it doesn't give you any more detail than you already had. And that's, I think, where the myth is that you can use digital zoom and you're going to get more detail out of it. That just doesn't exist. And
digital zoom usually happens after recording.
Yeah,
that's what people want it. So there's optical zoom, which you can do before recording, which is true zoom because you can zoom in and focus on whatever your subject is, and that will in effect enhance the video for you. But it's true video. It's live.
Right.
You can't do an optical zoom after recording. It can be only digital, and just what James explained, it doesn't do quite what these shows show you.
Right. I think that's the important thing too, right? That's the myth, is the idea that post recording, you would be able to get better resolution or better zoom capabilities than you had when you were recording, right? And
well, how many times have we got that call? You guys said that I could do zoom with this camera.
Exactly. All the time.
They think it's optical zoom after recording.
Yeah. Actually, I've had that with PTZs. I've had people where I'm explaining, new to the industry, they're looking at a PTZ and I'm demonstrating it. And, at some point I kind of hear sort of their impression is that a PTZ means that you can zoom in and zoom out on recording. And then so you can go from seeing, if you zoom the PTZ in and you're seeing something 500 feet away, you can go ahead and you can zoom out and see something 10 feet away from the camera. And of course, that's not the way it works. Optical zoom is stuff you have to pre-plan for. You have to make sure the camera's there in the spot it needs to be before the incident occurs. Otherwise, you don't get any benefit out of it. So
right. Exactly. That's such a good point. And I mean, so what about all these fancy new AI-based cameras and things like that? Do they work? Do they make this enhancing a little more real?
I get asked this kind of stuff all the time. Oh, my just went out. I guess I'll just use the built-in one now and twist over here. So yeah, I'm into photography and I get ads for enhance your photos all the time, and it's always AI. It's always AI based. And I think I actually have a test here that you can see. So I got couple different images that we threw into one of these AI platforms, and hopefully it showcases really what's going on here. So the first one is a 2 megapixel camera with somebody standing 50 feet away from it. And if you zoom into it, you're going to see you're not getting a lot of detail from, there's no details on the plate, anything like that, because you're just not there. The resolution's not high enough for him to be that far from the camera.
Right.
And then what I did is put it into this enhancing program and AI enhancing, all that kind of stuff. And as you can see, it doesn't do much. There's no additional detail with this image, is I guess the point. Because if you zoom in here and you see the on the enhanced one, it has like the little watermark on the
Mhm.
left there. You'll see like the plate is just even more blurry than actually the other one because it's doing its best to try to basically figure out
Piece
what's
it
around
together.
it and enhance it, for lack of better
Right.
words, and try to actually pull more detail out of it. But when you're talking security footage, like it actually like if you were printing this would actually not be a bad thing to do. Put it through like something that can, increase the resolution so you can print a bigger photo. That's something that does happen. Because what it does is like it sees a little greenery next to it, puts another pixel next to it, and that's how it makes it bigger, basically. But despite the fact that it's AI and all that fancy kind of verbiage with stuff, it's still the same situation. If you don't have the detail in the initial image, you're not going to get detail out of the final product either.
Right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, the AV world has technology and camera capability because it's also 10 times more expensive to do things after the fact that the security video camera world doesn't really do. But if I know, if I'm correct, I don't believe that holds up in court because I think you're breaking the watermark at that point.
Yeah.
Or the yeah, and that's of course unacceptable, I think. Pretty sure.
No, that's actually something that I was talking about this episode with Matthew, our CEO, and the first thing he brought up is you can, even if it did exist, it potentially be inadmissible in court just because who's to say that that program actually does that? And I think that's obviously a major thing beyond just being able to see actually if it really fully exists or not. But yeah, if it's not admissible, even if it existed, you really can't use it either.
I mean, yeah, I mean, Instagram and apps and it's just there's all kinds of things that play with video, right? They all do their surface enhancement, so to speak, but it's kind of an overlay. As far as I know, it's more of an overlay rather than doing anything to the actual video. So it wouldn't really help your cause at all.
Yeah, I mean, the ones in like Hollywood and stuff like that, it's interesting because you go back and like buy a Blu-ray of like Goodfellas, for example, great movie,
Right.
and all of a sudden, like I remember the first time I saw that because it's an old movie, you don't really expect it to look that good, and you're able to read like bottle labels on the table, and he's saying he's a funny guy and all that stuff, and so I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy! Like, how did they do that? But it's like film is actually very high resolution back in the day. It's just they didn't have the technology to actually display it at its full detail level. So now they can actually like scan that stuff, put it in. So that's where like I think some of the myth maybe comes from. It's a good point. Like, well, they can do it, how come we can? And it's because they actually are dealing with more detail and resolution than they're in the first place, and they're just kind of bringing that detail to light versus whatever your security camera footage has, that's what it's got. Whatever you have then is what you're going to deal with when recording, and there's no way to kind of enhance it further after that.
Well, I also think that the science and technology, I'm pretty sure NASA has ways of enhancing video, right?
Yeah.
But your 4-camera system would be $250,000. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
NASA models. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is why military bases love PTZs and live monitor them, right? It's because they need to physically enhance. They need to get as much detail as possible, right?
But key term right there is live monitoring.
Well, 100%, and that's exactly right. And that's I think a good transition to like we now are in the understanding that this enhanced myth that lives in this industry, has been busted, right? It doesn't actually exist. It's totally fake, right? You can only do so much with the footage that you have, and you only ever have the max resolution that you recorded in, right?
Right.
So what's best practice? How do we recommend getting, the best possible image that you can get out of security cameras?
Recording in the highest resolution that you can afford and having good coverage, field of view. Those are my two. What are yours, James?
I think exactly what you're saying is even understanding the capability of the camera. So like if you're shopping for a camera and you see that this one's 2 megapixel, this one's 4 megapixel, this one's 8, what does that mean? Just kind of looking at, if you're talking to somebody, sort of ask, what does that mean in the real world? What does that mean for being able to see a person? We have on our website images from right off the camera where you can specifically compare and contrast somebody at 50 feet. Here's one at 1080p. Here's one at 4 megapixel. Here's one at 4K. And understand that like whatever capability you have there is not going to be enhanced after the fact. So plan ahead of time to make sure that if you're worried about somebody being 50 feet away, that you go with the higher resolution camera. So that way, when somebody is 50 feet from the building, you know you're going to be able to get them reliably. That's the big thing, is planning it out, making sure that you have the right equipment the first time. And so you're not in the situation where you have a bad piece of footage and you're trying to desperately try to get any detail out of it and it's just not there. So
Right. I couldn't
Yeah.
said it better myself.
High resolution, the right coverage. Absolutely. Any final thoughts on this myth?
When
the
all
enhanced-
else fails, just start blasting away at the keyboard.
yeah,
That always works.
Yes, yeah, and say some type of like fancy machinery, like the
Uh,
A6 or whatever.
yeah. You gotta get that server. And that's the other thing with those episodes are always like there's always some kind of delay with getting the server. They're like, we gotta get this from across the country. It's such a unique piece of hardware. We gotta send it over there and
right.
increase the drama in the episode. So make sure you know where your enhancement machine is at all times. Is my kind of final thoughts. But now my real final thoughts is exactly what I just said before. Plan ahead. So that's
Plan ahead.
Plan ahead. Yep.
Plan ahead. Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. So that's it. That'll wrap up our first episode of Security Myth Busting. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. There will be additional links to some additional resources regarding like resolution and zooming and all that stuff down in the description below. So be sure to check those out. And feel free to leave any comments if you have any thoughts. Really appreciate it.
Love to hear it.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much. And be sure to tune into the next episode.
See ya.